The eldest son, named Lee Goon, was once bitten by the dog and his father even suspected him of biting the dog. Lee Goon, a once promising tennis player, saw his hopes dashed in a crucial match when he injured his wrist, saving her brother from a flying racket. This ended his sports career, leaving his parents worried after spending much money on his training. With Lee Goon unable to play, they forced him to stay home and sent his brother to the coach instead. Desperate not to give up his dream, Lee Goon chased after his parents' taxi, tripping and dropping his medal into a river. He fell into and was rescued by a girl years later as an adult. Lee Goon met a girl on a plane trying to help her clean a wine stain. He ended up pressing her temporary front tooth out during turbulence. Back on the ground, Lee Goon had to pretend to be his brother, now a national tennis idol, to distract the fans at the airport. However, the fans quickly realized the deception and chased after his brother. Leaving the airport, Lee Goon accidentally swapped luggage with Ju-yeon, the girl from the plane. As he finally sorted the luggage into the car, the driver sped off, forgetting to wait for him. Forgotten, Lee Goon had no choice but to walk home alone, stepping on gum along the way. Arriving home, his worn fabric shoes contrasted starkly with his brother's clean tennis shoes. At home, Lee Goon felt uneasy. He had no status in the family, living in a room cluttered with a fridge full of pickles and miscellaneous items. During meals, his mother would serve the choice pieces of chicken to his brother first, leaving Lee Goon with a small bowl of picked-over chicken breast, instructing him to feed the dog first. Frustrated, Lee Goon grabbed the dog, calling it stupid, which led it to bite him fiercely. His father's first reaction was to feel sorry for the dog in both his personal and professional life. Lee Goon was extremely cautious, yet he was still overlooked. A colleague ordered him to photocopy documents, throwing the files everywhere and mocking him for leeching off his brother. Lee Goon endured these humiliations silently, his old injury flaring up painfully. He stumbled to the hospital for help, where he was treated by Ju-yeon, a psychiatrist. Lee Goon asked her for painkillers, but Ju-yeon diagnosed his hand pain as psychosomatic, due to nerve fatigue, suggesting treatment could help over time. However, Lee Goon's past traumas weren't so easily explained or healed. After treatment, his hand gradually improved and Lee Goon left the hospital. Just as he left, Ju-yeon noticed the name Lee Goon had registered with. He was the person who had taken her suitcase by mistake. Earlier, she had seen her suitcase with Lee Goon's name on it at the airport. Realizing they had swapped by accident, she called him to retrieve her suitcase. Lee Goon, not taking it seriously, promised to return it within a week. After much thought, Ju-yeon sent him a message apologizing for her earlier words and offered him treatment at the hospital whenever needed. Lee Goon read the message and promised to bring the suitcase to the hospital the next day. Relieved, Ju-yeon focused on her research aimed at erasing bad memories that could cause psychological trauma. Her research was nearing completion and she planned to present it at an upcoming academic. Essential to her presentation were the research materials in the suitcase. On the day of the seminar, while waiting for Lee Goon, she encountered a distressing situation. A colleague approached her with a box of lab rats, slipped, and the box flew open, releasing the rats. They chased after the rats, trying to recapture them. Just as Lee Goon's car arrived at the entrance, the automatic doors opened and a rat ran out, tragically getting crushed by the wheels. This rat was significant to Ju-yeon to Lee Goon, who was unaware of the situation. It was just an ordinary rat. He apologized and offered to pay for the damage. Ju-yeon's days of research were ruined in an instant, infuriating her. She cruelly pointed out Lee Goon's pain, cursing him to never escape his past memories until death. After reprimanding Lee Goon, she returned to the seminar to explain to investors and hospital executives that the lab rat specimen number 107 had died and she needed another 100 days to conduct human trials. Heartbroken by Ju-yeon's words, Lee Goon felt a stabbing pain and tears fell continuously. Unaware of his long-standing low self-esteem, his family and others actually cared for him. His parents left a whole chicken in the pot when he overslept. His brother decided not to renew his contract with his agency after witnessing their disrespectful behavior. A young female tennis player who idolized him used a childhood photo of him playing tennis as a wallpaper for motivation, overwhelmed with sadness. Lee Goon accidentally fell into a river and was injured. He was rushed to the hospital for emergency treatment. Seeing Lee Goon unconscious, Ju-yeon was filled with guilt, thinking her harsh words had impacted him. During surgery, his negative memories were slowly erased. Waking up, he mistook Ju-yeon for his first love and embraced her excitedly, thinking she was his long-lost love. Post-surgery, Lee Goon developed a narcissistic personality, believing flies were attracted by his. The brain surgery halted the function of his amygdala, erasing all his bad memories. Ju-yeon should have been excited like the other doctors, but she couldn't smile. Waking up, Lee Goon excitedly hugged her, mistaking her for his first love, and even made a heart gesture during an examination, startling Ju-yeon. She was worried about potential surgical side effects and decided to discreetly monitor his condition. Post-surgery, Lee-gun became narcissistic and humorous, often joking about his parents, who were concerned about his injuries. He boasted about his perfection. His memory stayed at the moment he was in the finals of a youth competition, forgetting everything that happened after his victory. To soothe him, his family lied about him falling down the stairs, causing temporary amnesia. The brain surgery was also a research experiment initiated by his brother, who learned about the memory erasure project and requested the surgery for Lee-gun after the accident. Doctors advised the family not to let Lee-gun recall past events or meet familiar people, as it could lead to side effects. However, Lee-gun seems happy, absorbed in his own world. He believes that the flies around him are attracted by his handsomeness. While having his blood pressure taken, he narcissistically thinks the nurse has fallen for him. He makes hard gestures at girls he sees in the hospital. When Lee-gun spots Ju-yeon in the hospital corridor, he pulls her into a small room to chat. Ju-yeon firmly denies being his first love, stating they are just doctor and patient. While they talk, the sound of a female doctor flirting with her boyfriend over the phone is heard outside. Lee-gun stares at Ju-yeon with a mischievous smile, fantasizing based on the doctor's description. Hearing noises, the female doctor wants to check the storage room to avoid misunderstandings. Ju-yeon hides Lee-gun in a laundry basket filled with dirty clothes and pretends she was just on the phone as she leaves the room. After Ju-yeon leaves, Lee-gun can't stay in the hospital and goes home. He takes a bath, changes into stylish clothes and dresses up the family dog. Seeing tennis rackets everywhere, he thinks it's his room. His brother, to avoid upsetting him, hides his own photos and lies that everything in the room belongs to Lee-gun. Believing his family, Lee-gun thinks he became his brother's agent after retiring and feels fulfilled and happy after hearing from his parents. Lee-gun picks a luxury car from the garage and drives back to the hospital stylishly to change his dressing. The nurse reminds him not to leave the hospital without permission next time and mentions that Ju-yeon hasn't rested since his surgery. Meanwhile, Ju-yeon confesses to a male doctor that there's a problem with Lee-gun's memory as he mistook her for his first love. She recalls wiping a tear from his eye during surgery, which might have led to his memory being altered. The male doctor, who has known Lee-gun's family for years and has been his primary doctor, believes the memory wipe gave Lee-gun a chance for rebirth. He advises Ju-yeon not to rush to end the experiment and to find a solution to the memory issue. Ju-yeon returns to her busy office. Her mother calls, complaining about her all work, no love life and messy habits, even teasing her about her small chest. Ju-yeon, noticing Lee-gun laughing, quickly ends the call. After hearing the nurse's words, Lee-gun thoughtfully brings her hot milk in his eyes. Ju-yeon is his first love, caring and hard-working who refuses to go home despite the workload. Lee-gun declared that even if Ju-yeon had forgotten their past, he would still remember everything they went through together. The next day, a young female athlete who idolized Lee-gun learned he was hospitalized and injured and visited him at the hospital with a new tennis racket as a gift. During their chat, she asked why he suddenly retired and lost his past medals. The mention of medals triggered a headache in Lee-gun, and flashes of memories surged in his mind. Seconds later, he collapsed. Hearing the news, Julian rushed over. Lee-gun was still unconscious when his friend arrived and explained to Julian that Lee-gun had attended a school reunion he initially refused to go to, but ended up attending spontaneously. At the reunion, he saw a medal he once owned and learned that the girl who had it had just left. He chased after her, thinking she might be his long-lost first love. However, he was heartbroken to see her kissing her brother in the parking lot. Realizing his love was taken away by his brother again alone, he went to a bridge to cry from his friend's explanation. Julian realized first love became a painful memory for Lee-gun, leading him to choose to erase these bad memories during a surgery. When she accidentally touched his face, it triggered a reconstruction of his memories, making him believe Ju-yang was his first love. But for Lee-gun, it wasn't just the hurt from his first love, it was also the cold treatment from his parents before the incident. The family was having a cozy dinner. His grandmother, knowing Lee-gun liked soy-marinated crab, sent some to them. His parents, thinking only of his brother's nutritional needs as an athlete, gave all the delicious crab to him. Lee-gun, resentful, took the crab back from his brother's bowl. His mother scolded him for his aimless life and envy of his brother's food. His father intervened, asking her to understand Lee-gun's feelings as his life felt overshadowed by his brother. Hurt by his parents' preferential treatment, Lee-gun was deeply wounded. Now with lost memories, his mother wanted to be a good mom to him. That night, after waking up, Lee-gun walked to the tennis court with his racket for some air. Ju-yeon, also upset, noticed a tear in his eye. Lee-gun denied feeling down, saying his heart felt empty without tennis. Ju-yeon encouraged him to start anew. whether in dreams or love. Just then an automatic ball machine shot out a ball, which Lee Gun, using his previously injured right hand, caught swiftly protecting Ju-yun. Seeing that he had forgotten his past pain and could use his right hand adept, Julian knew she couldn't let him remember his old agony to heal Lee Gun. She admitted she was his first love. Meanwhile, police identified Lee Gun's brother. In a surgery, Lee Gun had all his painful past memories erased, leaving only the happiest ones. He mistook his attending physician as his first love and lifesaver. Lee Gun not only posed with flowers in front of Ju-yun, but also appeared with an umbrella in the rain. Seeing the joyful Lee Gun in front of her, Ju-yun couldn't bear to hurt him. But pretending to be his first love was not easy. Lee Gun quickly introduced Ju-yun to his parents as his lifesaver. Grateful, they shook her hand, swearing to treat her well for life. Ju-yun regretted this, as the role of a lifesaver was significant, and she dared not falsely claim it. She wanted to set boundaries with Lee Gun. However, Lee Gun approached from behind with background music and pedal effects, holding a bright rose to confess his love. Ju-yun replied that she had a boyfriend. Realizing something was off, Lee Gun noted that Ju-yun, a workaholic, was always at the hospital with colleagues, joking she had always been single. Ju-yun continued her lie, saying she just started secretly dating a doctor at the hospital named Tai-woo, who was actually her unrequited love. Ju-yun's lie was flawless, and Lee Gun believed her but couldn't accept it, trying to sabotage. When Ju-yun and Tai-woo were chatting, Lee Gun threw a shoe at his rival. At lunch, Lee Gun ordered from several famous takeouts, overshadowing the cafeteria meals. Despite the tempting food, Ju-yun remained unmoved, while food lover Tai-woo sat opposite Lee Gun to eat. Ju-yun got up to leave but was accidentally bumped, dirtying her clothes. Lee Gun stepped forward with concern while Tai-woo only had eyes for the food, observing Tai-woo's indifference to Ju-yun. Lee Gun, while chatting with a nurse, inquired about Tai-woo and learned he gave Ju-yun a cheap Eiffel Tower keychain, a common gift among the hospital staff given on birthdays. Frustrated with Tai-woo's stinginess, Ju-yun cherished the keychain, unaware that everyone had one. One day as she walked along the road, a car speeded by. It was Lee Gun's, who had arrived at the hospital. Ju-yun picked up a ball that fell from his backpack, scolding him for speeding and playing with balls on the road. Impatient, Lee Shin asked her to throw the ball back. When he jumped to catch it, balls spilled from his backpack, rolling down the slope to stop them. Ju-yun stretched out on the ground, using her body to catch most of the balls. Just then, Tai-woo and colleagues passed by, and Ju-yun awkwardly explained she was doing stretching exercises. Everyone found it strange, but chose to respect the situation. They promptly helped pick up the balls back into the bag. While collecting the balls, Ju-yun accidentally tossed her keychain in as well. When Ju-yun returned to the office, Lee Shin followed her. After retrieving his backpack, Lee Shin gave Ju-yun several health drinks to express his gratitude. Lee Shin has OCD and is particular about the angle of the drinks. He feels at ease only when the side with his endorsement photo is visible. Recently, Lee Shin was taken to the police station to assist with the investigation into Lee Gun's drowning incident. According to Lee Shin's statement, on the day of the incident, Lee Gun had a big fight with his family and went out alone. Lee Shin, worried about his condition, followed him quietly. He saw Lee Gun sitting helplessly on the bridge, deeply upset. Lee Shin initially wanted to give him space, but in the next second, Lee Gun fell into the water. Lee Shin quickly called for emergency help and rescued Lee Gun from the water before the rescue team arrived. The police were surprised. It is rare for someone to manage you in such a short time, raising suspicions. That evening, Ju-yun was working late at the hospital again. Exhausted by her busy schedule, she could fall asleep sitting down. Lee Gun passed by just as she could no longer hold her head up. He cushioned her head with his arm. This was the first time Lee Gun had a close look at Ju-yun's face. He couldn't help but admire her beauty and felt an instinctive desire to protect her. Watching Ju-yun's sleeping face, Lee Gun urged to kiss her. He resisted the impulse and instead read the notes Ju-yun had written. After a while, Ju-yun woke up and was startled to see Lee Gun next to her. Her first concern was that Lee Gun might have seen her notes which contained information related to his condition. Lee Gun, however, found the handwriting messy and couldn't read it clearly. Lee Gun wanted to invite Ju-yun for late-night food. When she refused, Lee Gun pulled out a wish coupon from a previous vet. They had played rock, paper, scissors to avoid being seen together, which might cause misunderstandings. Ju-yun lost and was supposed to hide in a laundry basket. Knowing she didn't want to, Lee Gun went himself on the condition that Ju-yun fulfill one of his wishes. Thus, Ju-yun had to accept the invitation to join Lee Gun for a late-night meal. During this private moment, Lee Gun pointed out that Ju-yun's taste in men was poor. A girl like her should find a devoted and passionate man. He had seen Taiwu being intimate with another woman, arguing that such a man was not worth her emotional investment. Ju-yun countered, saying Taiwu sent her countless caring texts every day, showing his concern and care. On the other hand, Lee Gun was still hung up on his first love and should move on to embrace a new life. For Lee Gun, being rescued from the water by his first love was a past event, but his first love continued to be present in his heart. Ju-yun realized how important the term first love was. Lee Gun. After they parted, she rarely went home to rest. The next morning, she found a stranger in her bed, Se-yang, the daughter of her mother's friend who had just returned from abroad. Se-yeon was cheerful and likable, quickly winning over Ju-yun's family and neighbors. Her presence promised to bring surprises to Ju-yun's life. Back at the hospital, Ju-yun noticed she had lost her keychain, a gift from Taiwu. She searched anxiously for it, seeing her distressed. Soon mocked the keychain as cheap. Ju-yun countered that its value lay in its sentiment, not its price. During their argument, Taiwu called Ju-yun's tone softened and she lied about being in the library. Ju-yun searched for the keychain from day to night. Meanwhile, Taiwu flirted with a female colleague in his car, suggesting she let Ju-yun cover her night shift so they could date. Unbeknownst to Ju-yun, Lee Gun in a nearby car overheard and felt concerned for her. He bought an identical keychain and lied that he had taken it. Noticing she was cold, he gave her his jacket. As Ju-yun headed to the parking lot, Lee Gun followed, stopping her from seeing Taiwu kissing the colleague. He turned her head away, insisting she only look at him. If she felt heartbroken, he would too. He forcefully kept her from looking at Taiwu. After Taiwu finished, he approached and offered to help Ju-yun, clearly wanting her to cover the night shift for his date. Unaware of the specifics, Ju-yun would likely agree to his request. Lee Gun, knowing Taiwu's unfaithfulness, advised her against being too generous and to learn to say no. Fed up with Lee Gun's interference, Ju-yun accused him and accidentally scratched his face. Back in the office, she felt guilty upon seeing a box of antiseptic bandages. She intended to give them to Lee Gun, but he had already left. After her night shift, she found a cup of hot coffee with a note from Taiwu on her desk, reminding her to rest well. Today, Lee Gun accompanied his family to a tennis championship where Lee Shin competed. The agency boss handed Lee Shin new shoes sponsored by a brand and insisted he wear them or they would reveal that he had been summoned by the police. Reluctantly, Lee Shin complied and won the match. His mother, a former athlete, noticed he was off his usual pace, unaware his new shoes had caused blisters. Lee Shin didn't want to disappoint his parents, so he silently endured the pain and promised to perform well in the finals. After leaving the tennis court, he went to a convenience store. He noticed the health drinks he endorsed were not arranged neatly, so driven by his OCD, he rearranged them to prominently display his photo. While paying, he accidentally bumped into Ju-yun, causing the eggs he was holding to fall and break. Seeing the broken eggs, superstitious Lee Shin felt a sudden drop in spirits, believing this meant he would lose the next day's finals. Losing would mean no prize money, disappointment from his fans and possibly his agency terminating his contract. Ju-yun, realizing how superstitious Lee Shin was, tried to cheer him up by sharing a meal with him. They tried high-calorie foods like rose, tteokbokki and mint chocolate which Lee Shin wasn't allowed to eat. He had Ju-yun taste them and described the flavors to him as a professional psychiatrist. Ju-yun noticed Lee Shin's low spirits and encouraged him, calling him a good boy. Touched and pleased by her encouragement, Lee Shin followed the taxi Ju-yun took, escorting her back to the hospital while also getting in his daily exercise. Seeing his determination, Ju-yun told the driver to slow down and they met up at the hospital entrance, where she gently wiped the dust from his face. After saying goodbye, Lee Shin received a notification about his credit card being used. Knowing it was Lee Gun busy all day, Lee Gun had heard he worked an athlete analysis at the agency before his amnesia and was happy to continue serving his boss. Assigned to sign a female player, Lee Gun convinced her by proposing a match against the coach's team. If they won, she would sign. Confident, Lee Gun performed surprisingly poorly during the match, either hitting his teammate with the ball or missing altogether. His hands were raw from the racket by the end. That evening, he generously treated the hospital's doctors and nurses to beef, packing extra portions for everyone. Meanwhile, Lee Shin, whose card had been used, called Lee Gun wanting his card back. Lee Gun nearby and fearing discovery over the keychain incident, tackled Lee Shin to the ground, jokingly explaining he was just playing around. The brothers lay under the big tree with petals falling from above, creating a scene as beautiful as a painting. Seizing the opportunity, Lee Gun took a keychain, falsely claiming it belonged to No Song. In reality, he had secretly returned a similar keychain that belonged to No Song to Ju-yun on this quiet night. Reflected on his past good fortune of playing excellent tennis and finding fulfillment in the sport now, with no memory of those days, winning and losing no longer mattered. He resolved to pursue what truly made him happy. Li Xin promised Li Gun he would help him achieve his old dreams. Li Gun declined, insisting Li Xin had his own path to follow. After parting ways with Li Xin, Li Gun returned to his hospital room to rest. Waking up, he found a band-aid on his face, unaware that it was Ju-yun who cared for him silently, who had placed it there. Similarly, Ju-yun didn't realize the comforting coffee she drank that morning was from Li Gun, who had sent it under Tai Wu's name. In his free time, Li Gun meticulously analyzed the playing style of a young female player with an old injury. After discussing a rehabilitation plan, they agreed to cooperate. Li Gun then started his own agency and signed a contract with her. Meanwhile, reminded by leadership, Ju-yun realized she had not yet submitted her research data for a memory erasure trial, which was still in the wrong suitcase taken by Li Gun. Unsure how to approach Li Gun for the documents, in desperation, she thought to ask Li Xin for help. However, Li Xin was busy competing. Ju-yun then contacted Li Gun's parents, falsely claiming she urgently needed his identification documents to obtain the password to Li Gun's house. After searching the large house, she retrieved her suitcase from Li Gun's small room. As she prepared to leave, she encountered Li Gun, who had suddenly returned home. Startled, Ju-yun crouched behind the suitcase, but Li Gun caught her as he entered. Meanwhile, at the tennis court, Li Xin recalled the words of Ju-yun and Li Gun. He realized that competing under his parents' expectations was not the life he wanted. With this thought, he interrupted the match and rejected his parents' travel plans. Deciding to go home and rest, unexpectedly, at the intersection, he ran into Se-yang, who was temporarily staying at Ju-yun's house. Seeing Li Xin, Se-yang displayed a meaningful smile. She had attended the last match and vented her frustrations by scribbling on Leshen's poster with a marker. Now, she deliberately blocked Leshen's way, hinting at an unusual relationship between them. Ju-yun planned to secretly leave after retrieving her suitcase. But Li Gun unexpectedly returned home, trying to remain calm. She falsely claimed she needed his ID urgently, which is why she rushed over with her suitcase. Li Gun, flattered, mistakenly thought Ju-yun was very concerned about him, and couldn't help feeling secretly delighted. After finding the ID, Ju-yun noticed Li Gun's hands were covered in blisters. She volunteered to treat his wounds and applied a bandage. Li Gun recognized the pattern on the bandage as the same one from another and realized Ju-yun did care about him. This thought made him very happy and he wished to get closer to her. Ju-yun didn't want to appear too indifferent beyond a doctor-patient relationship. She was willing to be a friend who could listen to his troubles. Li Gun was overjoyed by this. He vowed to always stand by her side and support her fully. Remembering Li Gun's sincere and eager look made Ju-yun feel guilty for using him as a subject in her experiment and for deceiving him. Unaware of this, Li Gun tried his best to win her favor. He hid a flower behind his back and entered the elevator where Ju-yun was, but the elevator door snapped off. Kneeling on one knee, he presented the stem without the bud, quickly adding that Ju-yun was as beautiful as a flower. Tai Wu and a female colleague were also in the elevator. Disliking Tai Wu, Li Gun wanted to teach him a lesson, and later spread pigeon droppings on Tai Wu's car as revenge for Ju-yun. Ju-yun was, for Li Gun's well-being, to protect him and prevent bad memories with acquaintances, she kept him from being discharged from the hospital. However, the small hospital couldn't keep him confined. He often sneaked out in his car. His parents focused all their attention on his younger brother Li Xin, leaving Li Gun without their company. Reluctantly, Ju-yun acted as his temporary guardian and accompanied him on outings at a crowded racetrack. Ju-yun stood in the aisle, getting pushed around but stubbornly not moving. Li Gun took her hand and led her to a less crowded area. Feeling the warmth of his hand, Ju-yun felt a flicker of warmth in her heart. Li Gun was at the racetrack to meet an investor to discuss funding his agency. The investor initially didn't want to waste time on Li Gun, a lesser-known figure, but was impressed by Li Gun's sharp betting analysis predicting the winning horse. After the race, when the horse won, the investor was convinced of Li Gun's insight and agreed to discuss a collaboration further. Curious why Li Gun didn't just make money from betting on horses and instead chose to be an agent, Ju-yun learned that his analytical skills were honed from his days as an athlete. He didn't want to use these skills for betting, but rather in fields where they were needed more. They left the racetrack happily. In the car, Li Gun buckled Ju-yun's seatbelt for her as he leaned in. Ju-yun's heart raced and it took her a while to calm down. Back at the hospital, Li Gun wanted to invite Ju-yun to dinner, but she received a call from Tai Wu and hurried to meet him. Upset, Li Gun walked away and was stopped by a nurse who secretly needed to examine him, a fact to be kept from everyone, including Li Gun himself. After being sedated, Li Gun was about to lose consciousness and saw Tai Wu worrying that Ju-yun was foolishly waiting for him. Meanwhile, Ju-Yun had decorated a conference room with heart-shaped petals and confessions taped on the window, all set for Tai-Woo's arrival. However, Tai-Woo did not show up. Ju-Yun continued to wait and saw Tai-Woo walking past the window after work. She wanted to call out to him but saw him meeting secretly with a female doctor. Tai-Woo, a playboy, was dating the doctor and keeping their relationship hidden while leading Ju-Yun on. His lies were meant to make Ju-Yun cover shifts for the doctor, giving them more alone time. Realizing the truth, Ju-Yun rushed back to the conference room, locked the door, and wildly sprayed a fire extinguisher, destroying the decorations. The female doctor accompanied Tai-Woo to the conference room, but unwilling to waste more time, she left dissatisfied. Tai-Woo had no choice but to follow her advice and did not enter the room. When Lee-Gun woke up, he immediately looked for Ju-Yun and saw her upset understanding. She knew the truth. Ju-Yun, with her pride hurt, stubbornly claimed she had misunderstood, and it wasn't Tai-Woo's fault. But Lee-Gun insisted on fronting the truth, making Ju-Yun uncomfortable and causing her to lash out at him, asking him not to bother her anymore to ensure she could continue treating Lee-Gun. Outside the hospital, Ju-Yun met with project investors and executives, claiming she had the hospital's approval to treat Lee-Gun outside and better observe him. The investors believed her and supported her unconditionally. Due to their presence, the executives had to tacitly agree to her request. Ju-Yun did this purely to protect Lee-Gun from any harm. Still upset about Ju-Yun's harsh words, Lee-Gun adamantly refused her and even tried to physically remove her. Suddenly, a loud thunderclap startled them and they quickly separated. Ju-Yun insisted on staying, claiming her phone was dead and appealing to Lee-Gun's sympathy. Reluctantly, Lee-Gun allowed her to stay in the guest room for the night. Determined to stay close to him, Ju-Yun decided to change her usual aloof and beautiful doctor persona, dressed casually and voraciously ate takeout food. Messily covering her face with sauce, Lee-Gun was preoccupied with his newly established sports agency. A female athlete he had collaborated with lost a match due to an injury and failed to make the national team. Furiously refusing rehabilitation, Ju-Yun accompanied Lee-Gun and insisted on providing psychological counseling as the team doctor. The athlete, a spoiled young woman, intentionally used complex tennis terminology to confuse Ju-Yun, then led her to the room and left her hanging there before slipping away. Lee-Gun rescued Ju-Yun and later went home for a family dinner. After hastily finishing his meal, he prepared to leave, which puzzled his family. His parents teased him, wondering if he was supporting a woman outside. Lee-Gun awkwardly explained that his first love was a thing of the past and that he was now focused on his work. Lee-Gun asked his brother Lee-Shin if he had stayed home on the day of the incident and was told yes, which made him uneasy. He had seen the car's GPS history, showing a trip to the hotel where a class reunion was held. Clearly, Lee-Shin was lying. To further investigate his movements, Lee-Gun tried to check the dashcam, only to find the memory card missing. In reality, the memory card was hidden by Lee-Shin in a safe in his room, along with a medal he had taken from Lee-Gun when rescuing him from the water. Back at his place, Ju-Yun hadn't returned and Lee-Gun worried. Tried calling her but got no response. At that time, Ju-Yun was drunkenly venting at a bar with Se-Yang, upset over work troubles, Lee-Gun's cold attitude, and the failed research project. Se-Yang, supporting a staggering Ju-Yun, headed to Lee-Gun's residence. They lingered at the door and then went to the parking area. Not seeing Lee-Gun's car, Ju-Yun decided to wait there. Se-Yang, concerned for her safety, insisted on staying with her. Exhausted and sleepy, they treated the garage like a big bed and fell asleep. The next morning, a crowd gathered around the two women sleeping in the garage. Lee-Gun, notified, came down just as Se-Jan left to buy a hangover drink, leaving Ju-Yun still asleep. Seeing this, Lee-Gun laughed and woke her up. He had to meet investors and didn't have time to deal with Ju-Yun, who took the opportunity to cling to him until he handed over his keycard. Annoyed by her whining, Lee-Gun threw the card at her. Ju-Yun, achieving her aim, reunited with Se-Yang, and they happily returned home. At the doorstep, Se-Yang mischievously let Ju-Yun enter first. Inside, she was greeted by her mother waiting in the yard with a broom ready to scold her for smelling of alcohol. To cheer up, Ju-Yun Se-Yang gave her a lucky bracelet hoping it would bring her good fortune. Inspired, Ju-Yun bought many tennis-related books and sought out Lee-Gun and Lee-Shin to deepen her understanding of tennis and improve her psychological counseling for the female athlete, hoping to secure her. As the team doctor by Lee-Gun's side, seeing Ju-Yun's determination, Lee-Shin decided to let her experience playing tennis. Ju-Yun tied her long hair back for convenience and focused on the game. As Lee-Shin taught, her hands on her hair kept hitting his face, which only endeared her more to him. Lee-Shin avoided whenever possible and endured when he couldn't. He showed no displeasure and happily played with Ju-Yun on the tennis court. Meanwhile, Lee-Gun was home, waiting for Ju-Yun. When the doorbell rang, it was his friend, not her, causing him some disappointment. His friend accidentally discovered women's products in the guest room. Lee Goon hurriedly explained that Ju-Yun was staying there in her capacity as a team doctor and that there was nothing personal between them. After finally sending his friend away, Lee Goon went to a nearby store to buy a charger for Ju-Yun. Ju-Yun returned to the area with Lee Shin and promised to treat him to dinner as thanks for his help that day. Lee Shin cheerfully said goodbye to Ju-Yun, unaware that a mysterious person had been following them. After they parted, the mysterious person continued to trail Ju-Yun. As she walked, her high heel got stuck. Lee Goon nearby started commenting on Ju-Yun's situation. Just then, a passerby approached and offered to help, but Ju-Yun politely declined. After some struggle, she managed to walk normally again. Lee Goon was about to follow her when he noticed someone oddly following. He trailed behind and soon realized that something was amiss. Kung quickened her pace. Lee Goon tried to catch the mysterious person but was shaken off. He continued the chase and tackled the person with a flying kick, discovering it was Taiwu. Confronted by Lee Goon, Taiwu claimed he was following Ju-Yun to find a chance to apologize. He had previously promised to date Ju-Yun after she returned from abroad but broke his promise by getting involved with the female doctor before her return. Now caught between two women, he felt immense pain. Additionally, Taiwu wanted to confirm with Lee Goon if Ju-Yun was indeed his first love. Lee Goon, not wanting to waste words on Taiwu, left. Back home, Ju-Yun heard the doorbell and opened the door to find it was Lee Goon and Lee Shin. While they were talking, Lee Goon returned to the doorway and admitted to Lee Shin that Ju-Yun was his first love. Meanwhile, at the office of Lee Shin's agency, the representative's desk was covered with many photographs taken by paparazzi of, including one from the day of the incident showing Lee Goon and Lee Shin arguing on a bridge. Lee Goon's brother also has feelings for Ju-Yun. When he visited his brother, he happened to find Ju-Yun at his brother's house. He learned that Ju-Yun was the girl Lee Goon had been fond of for years and would be working as the team doctor for Lee Goon. He felt conflicted. Ju-Yun did not want to cause any misunderstandings and hid the fact that she was living with Lee Goon. After their chat, Ju-Yun and Lee Shin left together. Lee Shin was silent the whole way, while Ju-Yun explained her reason for becoming the team doctor to monitor Lee Goon's condition and ensure there were no side effects from the experiment. As a doctor, she needed to be responsible for her patients. However, Lee Shin was still upset and coldly said goodbye to Ju-Yun, who noticed his anger. After Lee Shin left, Ju-Yun returned to Lee Goon's house. Lee Goon did not expect Ju-Yun to come back after his shower. He sneaked past the living room naked to get something from the fridge and was startled by Ju-Yun's voice. He hid behind the fridge door while Ju-Yun, busy taking notes, spoke to him without looking up. Lee Goon replied while sneaking behind the bathtub, covering his lower body with an apron and quickly crawling into the bathroom. Ju-Yun saw a new charging device Lee Goon had bought, which she needed, and guessed it was specifically bought for her. She confronted him in the bathroom and Lee Goon, now wearing a bathrobe, appeared suavely but refused to admit he bought the charger for her. If Ju-Yun could prove it, he would agree to hire her as the team doctor. Clearly, Ju-Yun had no evidence. Later, Ju-Yun insisted on watching a female athlete's video with Lee Goon. She moved closer to him with each comment. Suddenly realizing how close Lee Goon was and accusing him of moving next to her, she consciously moved back to her original spot. The next day, Lee Goon woke up early, happily eating barbecue. Ju-Yun, attracted by the smell, also wanted a taste. Lee Goon playfully remarked that eating together could lead to feelings. He refused to share his barbecue. Ju-Yun, annoyed, took a bowl of salad from the fridge. Lee Goon deliberately tempted her by bringing the meat close to her. After much effort, he persuaded the female athlete to accept Ju-Yun's psychological counseling again. Since the athlete had teased Ju-Yun during the last session, Lee Goon cautioned her not to be too harsh on Ju-Yun. Before the athlete, Ju-Yun had seen another patient and was somewhat distracted. Unable to continue her counseling work, she cancelled the athlete session. Seeing her dejected, Lee Goon looked worried. As they left the hospital, Se-Jan called Ju-Yun, who was in a remote village. As it was getting dark, Ju-Yun decided to pick up Se-Yang. Lee Goon, concerned for her safety, insisted on accompanying her. As darkness fell, they reached the countryside. Lee Goon stopped the car and asked Ju-Yun to close her eyes. Ju-Yun did not understand, but followed instructions anyway. She saw Lee Goon get out of the car and retrieve a shovel from the trunk. Hearing a strange noise, she opened her eyes and saw Lee Goon holding the shovel in the dark, mistakenly thinking he meant to harm her. It turned out she was overthinking. Lee Goon had no ill intentions. He was just burying a small animal that had died by the roadside. Afterward, Ju-Yun received a call from Se-Yang, who had safely boarded the bus home. Lee Goon noticed concern for Seyan and couldn't help teasing her, saying she wasn't heartless, just deliberately keeping her distance from everyone. Ju-Yun shared her own experience. Her father was also a psychiatrist who always prioritized his patients and work over his family, ultimately dying for his career. Kyung Ju-yeon constantly reminded herself not to die for strangers like her father and to keep a distance from others, especially patients, to avoid personal attachment. However, today while treating a patient, she saw own indifferent and annoyed expression reflected in the patient's sunglasses. At that moment, Ju-yeon realized she did not genuinely care about the patients, which deeply troubled her. Lee Goon comforted her, suggesting that simply being there to listen might already be a comfort to the patients. Touched by his words, Ju-yeon's negative feelings were alleviated. After dropping her off at home, Lee Goon left without noticing Se-yang, eagerly pulling Ju-yeon forward at the intersection. The next day, it was the day for Lee Goon, Lee Shin, and the female athlete to attend the national team substitute trials. Ju-yeon arrived early and was distracted by Lee Goon approaching. Lee Goon was very vain, and Ju-yeon was too angry to speak. Both entered the backstage area of the competition. Before the match, the female athlete fainted. Lee Goon and Ju-yeon rushed her to the hospital. En route, Ju-yeon woke the pretending to sleep athlete. She realized the athlete was just afraid of disappointing others and had faked fainting to avoid competing. Ju-yeon encouraged her to face her feelings, ignore the cheers, and do her best rather than live by others' opinions. Lee Goon also supported the athlete unconditionally, putting no pressure on her. Gradually regaining her confidence, the athlete returned to the competition with Lee Goon and Ju-yeon. Lee Goon analyzed that the athlete was not strong enough to win singles matches but had a better in doubles. Thus, he arranged for her to team up with Lee Shin in mixed doubles. While waiting, Ju-yeon sat next to Lee Goon and took out a new wish bracelet to measure it on his wrist as a gift for Se-yang. Just then, Lee Goon's phone rang. Ju-yeon reached into his pocket to help him and found a receipt for a charging device. Lee Goon quickly snatched the receipt back, admitting that if this continued, he might fall for Ju-yeon again. Ju-yeon tried to grab the receipt while he was distracted, accidentally knocking him over. Lee Goon's phone suddenly rang, breaking the awkward silence. It was good news from the female athlete's victory in the competition. Lee Goon signed her as he had hoped, and also kept his promise to officially hire Ju-yeon as the team doctor. That evening, Lee Goon accompanied the athlete to a meeting with the foreign coach at a hotel, the same place where a class reunion had been held before. Unexpectedly, the translator cancelled last minute, leaving no one to translate Italian. Luckily, Ju-yeon and Se-yang were nearby. Se-yang, who had returned from abroad, was fluent in Italian. Ju-yeon brought her along to help. Standing at the hotel entrance, Lee Goon's friend saw Ju-yeon and advised her to stay away from the Lee brothers. He had learned from Lee Shin that Ju-yeon was Lee Goon's first love. In front of Ju-yeon and Lee Shin, the friend revealed what happened on the day of the incident with Lee Goon. They realized that Lee Goon had seen Lee Shin with his first love in the parking lot, which caused him to lose control emotionally, leading to the subsequent events. After reflecting, Lee Shin realized that Lee Goon's first love was someone else. At the same time, Lee Goon was triggered by painful memories from the familiar parking lot setting. When he composed himself and arrived at the hotel suite, Se-jan appeared before him as the translator to protect Ju-yeon, whom he loved. Lee Shin explained to his friend that Lee Goon's bad memories had been erased, and he would no longer live in pain alone with Ju-yeon. Lee Shin confessed that his family, he knew how much pain Lee Goon suffered after retiring due to injury. He couldn't bear his brother's torment and agreed to let Lee Goon participate in an experiment to erase all his bad memories, giving him a chance to start over. Ju-yeon felt guilty after hearing this. She had let Lee Goon participate in the experiment out of selfish motives, not expecting it to go wrong and cause Lee Goon to mistake her for his love. Every sincere and eager look from Lee Goon made her panic. Determined to make amends, Ju-yeon resolved to stay by his side and try to prevent him from recalling painful memories. Ju-yeon suggested contacting Lee Goon's real first love and keeping them apart. Lee Shin falsely claimed he didn't know how to contact her, not expecting that the first love Se-jan was sitting right next to Lee Goon at that moment as they waited for Lee Shin's arrival. The coach grew impatient and was about to lose his temper. Se-jan distracted him by brewing the latest coffee, and Lee Goon discussed his insights from analyzing the athlete's competition data. The conversation flowed well and the meeting ended in a friendly atmosphere. Lee Goon watched from the side as Se-yang excitedly called Ju-yeon wearing the wish bracelet Ju-yeon had given her. Learning that the meeting had ended from Se-yang, Ju-yeon waited for a message from Lee Goon. Seeing no contact from him, she picked up her phone to text him, typed a message, but then pressed the delete button. Likewise, after dropping a sleepy Se-yeon near Ju-yeon's house, Lee Goon took out his phone to text Ju-yeon. Lee Goon, who is tsundere by nature, decided to hide his feelings behind a cold demeanor. He sent a brief text to Ju-yeon, asking her to pick someone up. As he lay in the backseat, Se-jan suddenly sat up, startling Lee Goon. By the time he looked back, the message had already been sent. Disappointed, Ju-yeon saw the text commanding her to pick up Se-young. When she stepped outside to speak with Lee-gun, he didn't notice her and drove off. Annoyed, Ju-yeon complained about Lee-gun to Se-young all night. Meanwhile, Lee-gun reminisced about his day with Ju-yeon and even fantasized in his dreams about their first close encounter. Immersed in his dream, he mistook Lee Shin's puppy for Ju-yeon and kept kissing it. The next day marked their first official day working. Together, Ju-yeon dressed nicely but had to change into something more understated after her boss warned her not to get personally involved with patients. After meeting Lee-gun, she maintained a cautious distance. Lee-gun, who had bought flowers for her, became frustrated when she asked him to write in a journal about his feelings. He scribbled angrily in the notebook and took the flowers back. Ju-yeon returned to the hospital disheartened and discussed Lee-gun's condition with her boss. She learned that years ago, Lee-gun had written emotional journals during psychological counseling at the hospital. To better understand him, she asked Lee Shin to find those journals. After parting ways with Ju-yeon, Lee-gun went to the hotel from the previous night, trying to recover forgotten truths. Memories slowly resurfaced as he revisited familiar places. Whenever he delved into these memories, a sharp pain in his right wrist stopped him. Later, Lee-gun went to the emergency center to confirm whether he was brought to the hospital by Lee Shin after an accident at home. Staff checked the records and told him he was hospitalized due to drowning. Rescued from under a bridge, realizing Lee Shin had lied, Lee-gun tried to recall more fragments of memory showed someone on the bridge trying to harm him. Lee-gun contacted the officer investigating the accident as Lee-gun's guardian. Lee Shin was notified by the police and immediately informed Kyung Ju-yeon, buying time by asking her to delay Lee-gun. Lee Shin rushed to the police station and secured the official accident report. Returning home, he searched through old diaries filled with Lee-gun's experiences after reading. A shocked Lee Shin was at a loss for words. Meanwhile, Ju-yeon and Lee-gun were frantically shopping at a mall. After returning home, she began decorating her room while hanging curtains. Ju-yeon fell and landed right in Lee-gun's arms. Lee-gun, hiding his embarrassment, tossed her onto the bed and left the room. Just then, Lee-gun's parents arrived with snacks and soup to visit. Ju-yeon hid and sneaked into Lee-gun's room to wait for his parents to leave. Unaware, Lee-gun spilled hot soup on his pants while opening a thermos and hurried back to his room. He found Ju-yeon inside and worried his parents might follow. He went to another room's bathroom. Hearing no noise outside, Ju-yeon, without even putting on her shoes, ran outside. Lee Shin, having received a message, came and fetched a blanket and shoes from his car trunk. As he was about to help Ju-yeon with the shoes, Lee-gun arrived with another pair after she put them on. He lifted her up and carried her back home under Lee Shin's watchful eye. Lee Shin, not wanting to lose the girl he loved to his brother, sought more opportunities to be with Ju-yeon. He clashed with his agency representative and planned to sign with Lee-gun's agency. Lee Shin was a major source of income, and he was not willing to lose him easily. When he saw a photo of the Lee brothers arguing on a bridge, he used it as leverage. Following Lee Shin, the representative arrived at Lee-gun's door just as Lee Shin rang the bell, threatening to reveal the truth about Lee-gun's fall into the river. Inside, Lee-gun and Ju-yeon, hearing the conversation through the video intercom, wanted to clear things up. But by the time Lee-gun tried to open the door, no one was there. Suddenly, Lee-gun felt a pain in his head. In the hallway, Lee Shin confronted the representative who believed Lee Shin had pushed Lee-gun off the bridge. Lee-gun learns that his accident might have other causes. Ju-yeon's behavior makes him feel that everyone but him knows the truth about his accident. Confronted by Lee-gun, Ju-yeon calms him down and takes him to the hospital for a checkup. In the observation room, she starts questioning her initial intent to erase all his bad memories to lessen his pain. It seems things did not go as planned, causing side effects instead. Taewoo eavesdrops outside the observation room, becoming curious about the side effects, and begins investigating. Ju-yeon immediately calls Lee Shin, annoyed. Lee Shin doesn't answer as he is drinking at a bar. He is confronted with photos showing a fight between the brothers on a bridge, contradicting his police statement. Regardless of whether Lee Shin pushed Lee-gun into the river, he is implicated. Ju-yeon receives a call back from Lee Shin and goes with Lee-gun, who just finished his checkup to the bar where Lee Shin is drunk. Lee Shin gets into a fight and is beaten up by a group outnumbered. Ju-yeon thinks of a way to save him using her wit. Lee-gun, armed with a tennis racket, accurately hits the guests with tennis balls. The guests, not taking it lightly, fight back. Earlier at the hospital, Lee-gun had been given a sedative. Concerned, Ju-yeon forces her way into the fray. Worrying for her safety, Lee-gun grabs her and hides. As the sedative kicks in, Lee-gun sits down and passes out drunk. Lee Shin falls asleep in Ju-yeon's arms. Seeing the brothers, she can't leave them and struggles to help both men up. They lean on each other and head home. At home, they all collapse on the bed. Juyeon tends to Lee Jin's wounds. Lee Gun wakes up and feels disheartened seeing Kyung Juyeon caring for Lee Shin. After taking care of Lee Shin, Juyeon notices Lee Gun also got hurt during the fight. Remembering his brave act of protecting her, her heart races overnight. Lee Gun wakes up and sees his crush Juyeon happy. He notices Lee Shin's puppy in his arms, panics and jumps out of bed. Stepping in the puppy's mess, he washes his feet several times in the bathroom. In the living room, he sees Lee Shin and Juyeon whispering, seemingly plotting behind his back, which infuriates him, leading him to chop vegetables fiercely. The three watch TV in the living room with Juyeon sitting next to Lee Shin. Lee Gun sits in the corner. The TV shows Lee Shin is renewing his contract with his agency, using the photos of the brothers' fight to coerce him with star athlete Lee Shin. The representative becomes a favorite among investors, making it harder for Lee Gun to attract invest. Besides lacking funds, his female athlete previously signed with advertisers needs to wear a mascot costume for promotion, but she throws a tantrum and strikes on the spot. Lee Gun does not want to force the female athlete to do anything she dislikes. He plans to pay a large compensation to the advertisers. After learning about this, Juyeon visits the school to talk with the female athlete. The athlete shows Juyeon the nasty nicknames left on her desk by her classmates. The athlete does not mind the mascot costume itself, but is concerned about public perception and wants to avoid opportunities for negative comments. After hearing the athlete's concerns, Juyeon gives her a trash bag. The athlete's first instinct is to throw it away, but Juyeon teaches her to treat bad comments like trash that should be discarded immediately instead of being held close and contaminating oneself. Juyeon also teaches her how to comfort and encourage herself. This seemingly old-fashioned method boosts the athlete's spirits, and she successfully completes the advertisement shoot. Lee Gun arrives at the scene, not wanting the athlete to do anything she dislikes. Inspired by her, the athlete encourages Lee Gun. Grateful, Lee Gun thanks Juyeon and invites her to dinner. Although Juyeon acts proud, she has been eagerly waiting for Lee Gun's call. After hanging up, she dresses up, looking forward to meeting him. Lee Shin calls Juyeon to inform her that he has found Lee Gun's old emotional diary and wants to meet. Lee Shin is upset because today, at the athlete's village, he encountered Se-jan, who will continue to work as Lee Gun's translator on Juyeon's recommendation. Knowing that Se-yang is Lee Gun's true first love, Lee Shin worries that her frequent presence might trigger painful memories for Lee Gun. He plans to tell Juyeon the truth so she can persuade Se-yang to leave. Coincidentally, while Lee Gun waits for Juyeon at a snack bar, Se-yang appears uninvited and joins him for a meal. Lee Gun is resigned as he watches the cheerful girl and then receives a message from Juyeon canceling their meeting. Disappointed he has no reason to stay, Se-yang notices he's been rejected and, seizing the moment, orders drinks to chat. She asks him how it feels to reconnect with his first love after many years. Se-yang is also searching for someone she misses. The term first love holds special significance for Lee Gun, and he vividly remembers their first meeting. Despite his unchanged feelings, Sion kindly tells him that the seemingly cold Juyeon actually cares about him. Hearing this, Lee Gun is elated. Meanwhile, Juyeon arrives at a restaurant to meet with Lee Gun and Lee Shin. Lee Shin not only pulls out a chair for her, but also compliments her looks and makes a heart gesture to express his feelings. Juyeon remains indifferent, focused on the emotional diary. Lee Shin hands over the diary, which contains no useful information. When Lee Shin mentions Se-yang, Juyeon states she won't be here long as a translator. Hearing this, Lee Shin immediately drops his plan to confess. Juyeon remains aloof with Lee Shin, but becomes more animated when talking about Lee Gun. When Lee Shin asks if she likes Lee Gun, the question leaves Juyeon deep in thought. She walked home, collapsed on the sofa, and invited Lee Gun for a drink. As they opened a can of beer, they both instinctively leaned in to sip the overflowing brew. They looked at each other, and Lee Gun came to his senses, handing the beer to Juyeon. After finishing the drink, they lay down on the sofa and fell asleep. Juyeon woke up first, admiring Lee Gun's sleeping face, and couldn't help but marvel at how handsome he was. Feeling her heart flutter, she reached out to touch his face, but just then, Lee Gun opened his eyes. Startled, Juyeon slapped him. Now fully awake, Lee Gun took her to visit the school of the female athlete at night. Juyeon was a bit scared, so Lee Gun held her hand as they walked slowly to the classroom. Learning about the athlete's troubles, he decided to replace her desk. Juyeon suggested covering the mean comments with graffiti, and Lee Gun agreed. They grabbed paint and brushes and drew the South Korean flag on the desk. Seeing Lee Gun by her side, Juyeon felt her heart stir. To confirm her feelings for Lee Gun, Juyeon hugged him. In that close moment, Lee Gun also felt his heart race. Kyung Juyeon hugged him tighter. hearing her own heartbeat speed up and confirming her feelings for him. Flustered, she claimed she hugged him to check for any irregular heartbeat or similar conditions, cleverly easing the awkwardness. After facing her feelings, Ju-yeon began avoiding Lee-gun. She hid behind a cardboard cutout near the entrance, trying to avoid meeting him. Unfortunately, Lee-gun passed by and saw Ju-yeon's face peeking out from the cutout. He was about to touch it when someone greeted him, giving Ju-yeon to slip into the changing room behind her. Ju-yeon peeked at Lee-gun from the side, stealing a glance at the boy who made her heart flutter. She felt conflicted, thinking she must be lonely and out of practice with relationships to have developed feelings for Lee-gun. Ju-yeon focused on avoiding Lee-gun while talking to the female athlete about overcoming fears and facing interviews confidently. As long as the athlete was no longer afraid, Ju-yeon wouldn't need to stay by her side, reducing her chances of meeting Lee-gun. While Ju-yeon was talking, Lee-gun called out to the athlete. Ju-yeon instinctively hid behind the cardboard cutout. Lee Shin noticed Ju-yeon's odd behavior and became curious about what she was watching. After the girl left, Kyung Ju-yeon looked forward through the cutout and saw Lee-gun's figure. Seeing how close the two seemed, Lee Shin felt annoyed before heading to the athlete's village. Ju-yeon avoided contact with Lee-gun and tried to blend in on the athlete's bus, but was spotted and pulled out, landing in Lee-gun's arms. Ju-yeon quickly distanced herself. Lee-gun offered her a ride in his car while Lee Shin invited her to join him, each brother pulling on one of her arms. Ju-yeon decided to go with Lee Shin. Just then, Se-yang approached and pulled Ju-yeon to Lee-gun's car. Lee Shin suggested that all three of them ride in his car. Ju-yeon held Se-yang tightly, reminding her to stay by her side at all times, even when going to the bathroom. As soon as she finished speaking, Se-yang handed her suitcase to Ju-yeon and went to make a phone call. Ju-yeon approached the car alone. The brothers both helped her open the door. Feeling awkward, she walked towards Lee Shin, annoyed. Lee-gun then called Se-yang to ride with them. Bodyguards chased after Se-yang, following orders from her family to bring her back overseas. Se-jan, unwilling to follow her parents' plans, waited for Lee-gun and Ju-yeon to get into the car. She then kicked Lee Shin to the back seat, took the driver's seat and floored the accelerator, breaking through the bodyguards' encirclement. The car moved quickly and Ju-yeon leaned towards Lee-gun, who protected her tightly. Se-yang used drifting to escape smoothly. Ju-yeon reminisced about her close contact with Lee-gun and hung her head in annoyance. Lee Shin, noticing her upset face, asked her with concern. Ju-yeon lied about feeling dizzy and said she would be fine after resting. The brothers then took off their jackets in the cramped space with Lee Shin covering Ju-yeon with his jacket. She used the jacket to cover her head in sleep, avoiding interaction with Lee-gun. Lee-gun asked Se-yang about the people chasing her. She admitted they were sent by her father and that if caught, she could not return to Korea. Se-yang risked returning to find someone she missed. Lee Shin quickly changed the subject, fearing Se-yang's identity as Lee-gun's first love would be revealed. When the car stopped at a service area, Lee Shin generously handed out 10,000 won to everyone to buy snacks. He then contacted So-yang's father to have her picked up, ensuring he had no intentions of reconciling with her. After hanging up, Lee Shin returned to the car and saw a girl sleeping in the back seat, mistaking her for Ju-yeon. Meanwhile, Lee-gun, recalling Ju-yeon's unwell appearance, thought she was not used to long rides. He went to a pharmacy and described her symptoms: nausea, irritability, and restlessness. The pharmacist misunderstood, thinking Ju-yeon was pregnant. Lee-gun explained they had only hugged once, and it was impossible. Failing to clarify, he bought some medicine and Ju-yeon's favorite hot dog, rice cakes. After shopping, he ran into Beyond and they walked to the car together. Lee Shin, seeing Lee-gun talking happily with someone, mistakenly thought it was Se-yang. Wanting to cherish the moment alone with Ju-yeon, he drove off, leaving Lee-gun and the other person at the service area. Both of their phones were in the car and they had to borrow someone else's to contact Lee Shin. When Ju-yeon called, Se-yang had just woken up in the back seat. Lee Shin realized his mistake and decided to wait at the next service area. The two walked along forest path. Ju-yeon, wearing high heels, had already blistered her heels. Lee-gun took out the medicine he bought at the service area, but did not have the band-aids Ju-yeon needed, which disappointed her. She continued walking in pain. Lee-gun felt that Ju-yeon was being cold and deliberately keeping her distance. He wanted to know what he had done wrong to upset her. Ju-yeon explained that the mountain path was difficult and her heels were blistered by her shoes, which soured her mood. Lee-gun understood and they sat down to rest. He kneeled in front of her and pulled out an alcohol swab he got for free from the pharmacy, intending to treat her heel. Ju-yeon was reluctant, so he coaxed her with hot dog rice cakes he had bought, treating her injury as she allowed. Lee-gun teased her, calling her a crybaby afraid of pain. Ju-yeon, Not convinced, moved her face close to his to show she wasn't crying. Lee Goon looked proud, and Ju-Yun finally made eye contact. After resting, they continued their journey and arrived at the meeting point only to find Lee Shin and Se-Yang expressionless. Just before, Lee Shin had lied about needing to use the restroom outdoors and asked Se-Yang to wait nearby. He stabilized Se-Yang and then sent her father her location, hoping her bodyguards would come and take her overseas. Unfortunately, the bodyguards did not arrive. Lee Shin felt something bite his buttocks, Se-Jan, recalling a nearby sign about snakes. Suspected a snake bite and called for emergency help, but the rescue would take half an hour. Lee Shin, very upset, regretted contacting Se-Jan's father secretly, feeling it was karma. He felt he was dying and confessed he knew the person. Se-Jan was looking for her biological father, not her first love as he had thought. After speaking, Lee Shin fainted. Se-Yang, fearing his death, sucked out the venom. When the rescue team arrived, they informed him it was just a bee sting and there was no danger to his life. Se-Yang was stunned. As the four were about to leave, the car ran out of gas just as the meeting time approached. If they were late, Lee Shin would lose his qualification for the competition. Fortunately, a female athlete contracted by Lee Goon, anticipating such a situation, drove there to pick everyone up. They arrived at the athletes' village just in time. While Lee Shin and others went to the training camp, Lee Goon took Ju-Yun to the countryside, a place of memories with his first love. Ju-Yun was saddened as Lee Goon passionately recounted the past, fearing she might not live up to his expectations. Thinking Ju-Yun had forgotten past events and was avoiding facing his true feelings, Lee Goon tenderly held her face and kissed her deeply. Ju-Yun no longer resisted and responded to his kiss. A man whose painful memories were erased fell in love with a beautiful doctor as he held aspirations for life. He thought he found true love but was manipulated by Lee Shin. Lee Goon saw Ju-Yun as his true love and felt her affection for him. He hoped Ju-Yun would follow her heart. After Lee Goon kissed her, a passerby accidentally interrupted their moment. Later, Lee Goon drove Ju-Yun to his family's old house, a place where he had lived with his family. There, Ju-Yun took out instant food from her luggage, and they enjoyed a meal together. As a doctor who often works overtime at the hospital, she usually eats instant food to save time for research and patient care. Lee Goon, concerned about Ju-Yun's health, reminded her to take care of herself, deepening her love for him. Nervous, she casually drank a beverage next to her, not knowing it was an aphrodisiac made by Lee Goon's mother for Lee Shin, and left in the car at night. The medicine caused Ju-Yun to feel overheated and restless. She fantasized about Lee Goon and could not sleep. In an attempt to calm down, she continued to drink more of the aphrodisiac. Hearing her restless sounds, Lee Goon came to check on her. Startled by a noise like a mouse, he hugged her tightly. They went searching for the mouse and Lee Goon, frightened, ran out when he saw it. After the incident, neither could sleep. They wrapped in blankets, chatted outside under the stars and fell asleep side by side. The next morning, Ju-Yun woke up excited to see Lee Goon sleeping beside her. She admired his sleeping face for a long time before deciding to get up. Lee Goon had been awake silently watching her just as she had watched him. They packed up and prepared to drive back to the athletes' village. Lee Goon picked wildflowers for Ju-Yun, making them both happy upon arrival. He carefully fixed her hair. Back in the village, Lee Goon encountered Se-Yang talking to a middle-aged woman, her mother, who was trying to convince her to quit her job and return to Italy. Lee Goon learned that Se-Yang had run away from home to find her biological father, whom she had never met. Seeing that she did not want to go back, Lee Goon lied about suing Se-Yang for fraud to prevent her from leaving the country. Initially, Se-Yang signed a work contract with Lee Goon under the guise of looking for a job and obtained a work visa. However, her true purpose was to find her biological father, which constitutes fraud. Lee Goon crafted a series of lies that successfully deceived Se-Jan's mother. Se-Yang was worried that if her foster father, a mafia boss, heard about Lee Goon potentially suing her, he might react unpredictably. Upon hearing this, Lee Goon's heart skipped a beat. He decided to send Se-Yang back to Italy immediately. However, Se-Yang refused to leave despite the circumstances, leaving Lee Goon with no choice but to accompany her to gather information nearby, trying to locate her biological father. During this time, Lee Goon met an uncle who had been a neighbor to his family. The uncle mentioned how Lee Goon had periods of severe depression in his youth, which worried his grandmother immensely. She often fretted about her grandson having caused someone's death. Suddenly, Lee Goon experienced a severe headache as memories flooded his mind. A passing taxi triggered a childhood memory of him crying and chasing after a car which was carrying his abandoning parents. Emotionally charged, Lee Goon chased the taxi again. Following his memories, he arrived at the riverbank where he had fallen while trying to retrieve a medal. Nearly falling into the water, Se-Yang desperately pulled him back. Coming to his senses, Li Gun remembered being saved by his first love. He rushed to Ju-Yun and embraced her, having previously believed that she had died trying to retrieve his medal. His guilt from over the years vanished with the return of his memories. Li Gun confessed his feelings deeply to Ju-Yun, who held him tightly and promised never to leave easily. Unfortunately, Li Xin was nearby and saw them embracing. Seeing the woman he liked in someone else's arms filled him with rage. Later, as Ju-Yun was about to meet Li Gun, she received a call from Se-Yang's mother, who hoped Ju-Yun would persuade Se-Yang to return to Italy with her. Ju-Yun didn't want to influence Se-Yang's decision, but Se-Yang's mother revealed that Li Xin and Se-Yang had once dated. Surprised by this, Ju-Yun connected the information. Realizing that Li Xin had deliberately hidden the fact that he and Se-Yang had been a couple on the day of the reunion, Li Gun had witnessed his first love kissing Li Xin. This explained why Li Xin had kept his relationship with Se-Yang a secret from Li Gun. Seeing Li Gun waiting outside in the cold, Ju-Yun hesitated for a long time before deciding to call Li Xin to clarify things. When Li Gun returned inside, he saw Kyung Ju-Yun leaving and followed her. In front of Li Xin, Ju-Yun voiced her doubts. Already heartbroken, Li Xin angrily admitted that Se-Jan was Li Gun's first love. He hoped Ju-Yun would maintain a distance from Li Gun. As Li Gun approached, Li Xin, in a fit of anger, deliberately kissed Ju-Yun. Li Gun rushed forward to separate the two, but was pushed by Li Xin into the pool behind him. In the water, Li Gun seemed to clearly see his first love's face, realizing something was wrong. Ju-Yun and Li Xin jumped into the pool one after the other to rescue the unconscious Li Gun. Seeing Ju-Yun's anxious face, Li Gun woke up, but the person taking care of him turned out to be Sion. Ju-Yun, using business as an excuse and unsure how to interact with Li Gun, found reasons to leave and left Sion to take care of him. To distract herself, Ju-Yun decided to cook for her family for the first time, but she had never cooked before. She either broke the dishes or didn't know where to place the kitchen tools. She then decided to wash the winter quilts. Her mother sincerely hoped Ju-Yun would go to work, but Ju-Yun escaped into the bathroom to wash the quilts. Despite being busy, she couldn't stop her mind from wandering. She checked her phone and felt lonely, not having received any messages from Li Gun. Unbeknownst to her, Li Gun was suffering. Seeing Li Gun develop a high fever, Se-Jan opened the bedroom window to cool him down quickly, covered his upper body with fever-reducing patches, and applied ice packs. Se-Jan herself wore a down jacket to keep warm. Li Gun shivered from the cold and his temperature quickly dropped. Seeing his temperature was too low, Se-Jan changed tactics, dressed him in a thick down jacket, and directed a heater towards him, which left Li Gun even weaker. Se-Jan took a thermometer from under his arm and put it in his mouth. Following the instructions, Ju-Yun had left while cooking porridge for Li Gun. She called Ju-Yun to report her caregiving. Following Ju-Yun's instructions exactly, Ju-Yun wanted to inquire about Li Gun's condition, but didn't know how to ask. Inside the room, Li Gun, hearing Se-Yang talking to Ju-Yun, dragged his heavy body over, wanting to talk to Ju-Yun. Misunderstanding that Li Gun was hungry and wanted to eat, Se-Jan abruptly hung up the phone. With nothing else to do, Ju-Yun started organizing household items and found Li Gun's emotional diary, which recorded his past, the neglect by his family, and his longing for his first love. During those dark days, Li Gun's only motivation to live was the hope of reuniting with his first love one day. After reading Li Gun's emotional journey, Ju-Yun felt very conflicted at that moment, unable to resist his longing for Ju-Yun. Li Gun snatched the phone from Southeast Yang after she had dialed Ju-Yun. Hearing Li Gun's voice, Ju-Yun's feelings became complicated. Although she wanted to be by Li Gun's side, the words that came out were that it was better for Se-Jan to take care of him. She quickly hung up the phone and, recalling the details of her interactions with Li Gun, involuntarily shed tears. That evening, Se-Yang brought a folk remedy, a strong liquor to treat Li Gun's discomfort. While mixing the drink, she tasted it and ended up drinking quite a bit herself. After delivering the drink to Li Gun, she soon passed out on his bed. After some rest, Li was mostly recovered and began taking care of Se-Yang, giving her a hangover remedy. Se-Yang woke up, insisting on going home. Reluctantly, Li Gun accompanied her. Drunk, Se-Yang vomited on the way and staggered as she walked. Li Gun ended up carrying her. Arriving at Ju-Yun's house, they encountered Ju-Yun and Li Xin facing off. Recently, Ju-Yun had been avoiding Li Gun and refusing to answer his calls. Unwilling to give up, Li Xin thought of waiting at Ju-Yun's house to show his sincerity. However, Ju-Yun wanted nothing to do with Li Xin and outright rejected his affections. Li Xin tried to stop Ju-Yun from leaving just as Li Gun saw them. In this awkward situation, Ju-Yun walked straight to Li Gun. Concerned about Se-Yang, Li Gun didn't understand why Ju-yun always ignored his feelings and never cared about his inner thoughts. Li Gun told her he had been thinking about her, unable to meet Li Gun's eyes. Ju-yun helped Se-yang inside. A drunk Se-yang told Ju-yun about her day with Li Gun. Listening to Se-yun-kung, Ju-yun began to think and accidentally burned her hand. Meanwhile, Li Gun and his brother had a tennis match. Li Xin had the upper hand until Li Gun mentioned that the glow-in-the-dark bracelet Li Xin had been wearing might have fallen into the river. This distracted Li Xin, causing him to lose a point. The bracelet had been lost when Li Xin saved Li Gun and it fell off. This memory flashed through Li Gun's mind as he was pushed into the pool, helping him vaguely recall the bracelet incident. Unbeknownst to them, someone hidden was watching their actions. After separating, Li Xin found an emotional diary at Ju-yun's house and burned it in a furnace. Feeling conflicted shortly after he left, someone entered the furnace room and took the diary. The next day, Li Xin received an anonymous text asking him to meet. The text included a photo of Li Gun and his brother fighting on a bridge. After seeing the message, Li Xin left the athlete's village to inform his representative and rushed to the meeting place. At the same time, Li Gun went to the police station to get an accident report. Usually, before rescuing someone, one would remove their shoes before jumping into the water. But Li Xin had jumped in with his shoes on to save Li Gun. This made Li Gun suspicious as he remembered arguing with someone on the bridge. He started searching for surveillance cameras near the bridge and eventually found a vehicle parked not far from the scene on the day of the incident. He retrieved clues from the vehicle's dash cam. Meanwhile, a mysterious man approached Li Xin in a restaurant. The man was surrounded and detained by personnel arranged by the representative. Li Xin thought he had caught the mastermind, but the man was just carrying out someone else's orders, exposing Li Xin's act of tipping off others. Seeing this, the real sender fled, and Li Xin chased after him, but the sender escaped successfully. Before Li Gun fell into the water, a photo of him arguing with Li Xin on a bridge spread wildly on social media. Li Xin became the prime suspect in a plot against his own brother. Facing public opinion online, Li Xin did not clarify directly but chose to flee. Li Gun used the location of Li Xin's watch to confirm his presence on the bridge. He and a representative went to the police station to access surveillance footage. The representative, thinking Li Xin was despondent, shouted excitedly. Seeing Li Xin hadn't done anything foolish, the representative cheered in relief. As the victim, Li Gun was always skeptical about the truth and diligently searched for clues. He eventually found a vehicle parked near the scene on the day of the incident and discovered the answer in the dashcam video. The night of the accident, after arguing with his family, Li Gun ran away from home. Li Xin found his desperate and despondent brother on the bridge. In front of Li Gun, Li Xin made sarcastic and harsh remarks, pointing out that Li Gun's downfall was due to his own insecurity and cowardice. Li Gun, believing Li Xin had robbed him of everything and was now taunting him, angrily punched Li Xin. Li Xin also harbored grievances. Years ago, he replaced Li Gun to pursue their tennis dreams. Their parents prodded him with words, always comparing him unfavorably to his brother Li Gun. To surpass his brother, he practiced twice as hard, enduring the pain alone. Under years of pressure, he developed depression. Li Gun consoled Li Xin, telling him he had gained a lot, and should not complain after achieving everything. This realization helped Li Xin decide to free himself from the pain. He sat on the bridge railing and leaned backward head first. Li Gun rushed over and grabbed his wrist, refusing to let go. Both fell into the water, and Li Gun hit his head and lost consciousness. During the fall, Li Xin pulled the unconscious Li Gun from the water and administered first aid. Seeing his brother save him again, Li Xin deeply regretted his actions. Meanwhile, Ju-yun, hearing that Li Xin was suspected of harming Li Gun, was very worried about Li Gun and feared appearing before him might trigger unpleasant memories. She could only use her boss as an intermediary. The boss held a landline in one hand and relayed everything to Ju-yun on a mobile phone in the other, reassuring her that Li Gun was fine. At this moment, unable to find Li Xin and desperate, Li Gun discovered the latest news about Li Xin online. It turned out Li Xin was wandering in a different town. Seeing two teenagers forcing another boy to take off his jacket, he intervened, only to learn they just wanted their jacket back. He gave his own down jacket to the teenager, which unfortunately had his wallet and ID inside. Li Xin went to a public phone booth and used his last change to call Ju-yun. After hearing her voice, he hurriedly hung up, concerned. Ju-yun used the caller ID to track down the phone booth's location and immediately set off to find him. Meanwhile, a teenager found Li Xin's ID in a jacket and learned he was a tennis star. He posted online that Li Xin was in town. Li Gun followed this online information, but Ju-yun found Li Xin first in front of her. Li Xin shared his feelings. At age 12, he took over Li Gun's tennis dream. Unable to bear the pressure from their parents, he did something wrong. When Li Gun found out, he discussed Li Xin's experiences as his own during therapy sessions. Later, learning about the existence of an emotional diary Li Xin worried it contained. To him destroyed it that night on the bridge. Li Xin lost hope in life. Li Gun saved him for the second time since then. Li Xin decided to plan his own future, not live in Li Gun's shadow. After hearing Li Xin's story, Juyun offered advice like a sister. She suggested starting with small things to plan life. Li Xin confessed that he could be himself around Juyun without carrying the burden of parental expectations or living in Moon's shadow. As Juyun was about to leave, she saw Li Gun nearby. Li Gun walked away, not wanting to hear her explanations or continue their entanglement. He harshly brought up Juyun's father, hurting her deeply. Juyun slapped Li Gun and left crying. Li Xin quietly followed her, while Li Gun went somewhere private and cried loudly. The next day, Juyun received a call from her boss. Taiwu found out that Li Gun had memory recognition errors due to the experiment's side effects. Selfishly, Taiwu asked to reset Li Gun. If they disagreed, he would tell Li Gun the truth about the experiment. Hearing this, Juyun despaired, fearing harm to Li Gun. Seeing this, Li Xin knew Juyun's priority was her brother. He decided to let go of his feelings and drove Juyun to Li Gun's place, watching her leave anxiously at home. Juyun did not find Li Gun and went back to the hospital. Coincidentally, Li Gun had also run to the hospital sports field, reminiscing about his times with Juyun. Breathless, Juyun expressed her concerns to Li Gun. Unable to repress his feelings, Li Gun kissed Juyun. He walked her home, reluctant to part. As they were about to kiss goodbye, they accidentally rang the doorbell, breaking the moment after Li Gun left. Juyun returned home, hoping to reveal the truth about Li Gun's first love to Se-Yang. But Se-Yang fell asleep after a brief chat. After one night, Li Xin stopped avoiding the situation and went to the police station for investigation after submitting a video that proved their innocence. They were cleared of murder suspicion. Following this incident, Li Xin decided to take a break from being an athlete for a year despite strong opposition from his parents and agent. Regardless of others' opinions, Li Xin stood firm on his decision. He hoped to find his own path in life in the coming days. Li Gun supported Li Xin's choice unconditionally. Past grievances became history for the brothers. Li Gun sincerely wished for Li Xin to live his life without being influenced by others. After Li Xin left the athlete's village, his female doubles partner fought someone who was deliberately damaging Li Xin's reputation. She was expelled from the village for the altercation. Meanwhile, Se-Yang also resigned from her translator job after careful consideration. Thus, Li Gun left the village with his people. With Li Gun's help, Se-Jan made progress in finding her biological father. She had just obtained his photo and name when her mother appeared with her subordinates, intending to forcibly take her away. Shortly after their car started, a man on a bike fell in the middle of the road while her mother's subordinates checked on him. Se-Jan seized the opportunity to escape. With the bicyclist's help, she successfully escaped from her mother. Surprisingly, the bicyclist turned out to be her biological father. Learning that Se-Jan was looking for him, he decided not to miss the chance to reunite and appeared voluntarily. Se-Jan finally reunited with her father. They enjoyed street food and had fun together. Making up for lost time, a passerby accidentally bumped into Se-Yang. Her father used this as an excuse to temporarily leave her sight and chased after the passerby, angrily grabbing his collar. While waiting, Se-Yang called Juyun to share the good news of finding her father. Unexpectedly, her father rushed over, snatched Se-Yang's phone, and sternly warned her not to contact anyone. After hanging up, Juyun and her boss were worried about the experiment's aftermath. Taiwu, knowing that Li Gun had memory recognition errors from a bad memory clearing experiment intended to reset him to prevent Taiwu, Juyun decided to remove the side effects from Li Gun as soon as possible. Through numerous studies and trials, she realized that only by restoring Li Gun's memories to their original state could the side effects be eliminated. This also meant exposing her fake first love identity, potentially ending their relationship. Thinking this, Juyun asked Li Gun. Unaware, Li Gun arrived happily with balloons. He had mistakenly arranged dinner for tomorrow. Juyun suggested going to another place for dinner. Upon arrival, Li Gun was very nervous but tried to stay close and joke with Juyun, who laughed, complimenting that he looked even more handsome in this situation. Delighted by the compliment, Li Gun arranged various buffet foods into cute shapes on a plate and handed it to Juyun. With Li Gun by her side, Juyun temporarily set aside her worries. After dinner, the two strolled around. Juyun mentioned she was a bit tired. Standing in front of her, Li Gun taught her a fatigue-relieving method, saying he felt healed whenever he saw her. Juyun turned away, claiming she was a bit cold. To change the subject, Li Gun opened his coat and wrapped Juyun in his arms, warming her with his body heat. At that moment, all the complex emotions in Ju-yun's heart disappeared. The next day, Lee Goon visited a jewelry to customize a special bracelet for Ju-yun. Meanwhile, Ju-yun, after receiving a date message from her boyfriend, had tears of sadness in her eyes. She resolved to explain everything to Lee Goon. After sending the message to Ju-yun, Lee Goon received a call from the police about new developments in the case of the mysterious person following Lee Shin. Earlier, Lee Goon had informed the police about the envelope with the secretly taken photos, which seemed to be sealed with saliva. Containing the mysterious person's DNA, the police's relentless efforts identified the person as Ju-yun, who had a violent criminal record, including murder. Unbeknownst to Lee Goon and Ju-yun was also, Yang's biological father. After receiving the police notification, Lee Goon got a call from Tai-woo. Learning that Ju-yun was in trouble, he rushed to the hospital only to find Tai-woo alone in the surgery room. Tai-woo revealed that he knew Ju-yun was secretly working to remove Lee Goon's side effects to prevent his reset experiment. In revenge, Tai-woo disclosed the truth about Lee Goon becoming a clinical trial subject, which resulted in memory distortion side effects, mistakenly believing Ju-yun was his first love. Upon hearing that Ju-yun used him as a guinea pig for the bad memory eraser project and approached him with a purpose, Lee Goon was shocked and couldn't accept that Ju-yun would do such a thing. Stimulated by this, Lee Goon suddenly had a severe headache. Ju-yun's boss arrived upon hearing the news. But Tai-woo told Lee Goon that the boss and Ju-yun were in cahoots. After learning the truth, Lee Goon's emotions collapsed. At that moment, Ju-yun was waiting for Lee Goon at the restaurant, but she received the message that Lee Goon was already on the operating table. After surgery, the bad memories that had been erased from Lee Goon's mind returned. He reverted to only complaining about himself, spending his days drinking and deceiving himself, immersed in a state of despair. Seeing Lee Goon become despondent again, his father was very worried. Ju-yun analyzed the current situation. Lee Goon's psychological trauma stemmed from a wrist injury that prevented him from competing. However, in daily interactions, his family did not provide timely love and care, which hurt him the most. Following Ju-yun's advice, his father tried to create more happy memories with Lee Goon to replace the bad ones. Upon returning home, the father took down Lee Jun's individual photo and packed away Lee Jun's trophies. Normally submissive to his wife, at home, he spoke up loudly for the first time, ordering the family to come sit down for a meeting. Led by the father, the family wore matching outfits and took a new family portrait. They then went outside for a picnic, but a sudden windstorm and thunderstorm hit during. Instinctively, the mother hugged Lee Goon nearby and is touched by the warm embrace. As the weather worsened, the family rushed back to the car to leave but encountered a car breakdown. It took a long time for the four of them to return home in disarray. Back home, Lee Goon found his room previously no different from a trash heap, neatly cleaned and rearranged by Ju-yun, now with a potted plant and calming aromatherapy, smelling the lavender in the air and seeing the apology note left by Kyung. Lee Goon remembered being deceived and used as a test subject by her, leading to an emotional breakdown. He threw things on the floor and sobbed by the bed. Seeing Lee Goon in so much pain, his mother, who never drank in front of her sons, invited them to drink soju together for the first time. While drunk, she spoke many heartfelt truths. She had been an athlete too, but had to give up her dreams due to an injury. After having the Lee Goon brothers, she recognized Lee Goon's tennis talent and pinned her hopes on him. During the moment Lee Goon rushed to save the injured Lee Shin, she wished it had been Lee Shin who was injured. After Lee Goon retired due to his injury, she placed all her hopes on Lee Shin, thinking of letting him fulfill the championship dreams she never achieved. Now she realized her error and the obsessive desire to compensate, which undoubtedly hurt both sons. She sincerely hoped in the future that both brothers could let go of their burdens and live the lives they wanted. This honest and heartfelt conversation healed Lee Goon's long-standing emotional wounds. From the moment of his mother's embrace during the thunderstorm, he felt her love and let go of past grievances. The father, who had been secretly listening outside, couldn't help but enter the room and emotionally embraced his family. They apologized for not being perfect in their roles as parents. The family all slept together in Lee Goon's small room. The father explained why he had placed the fridge in Lee Goon's room. Lee Shin had already guessed the reason. Their mother wanted to look after Lee Goon, who stayed in his room without having to openly enter. So she thought of fetching food from the fridge as a pretext to check on him. Hearing this, Lee Goon was deeply moved, realizing that his parents had always loved him in their own way. The next day, Lee Goon visited the hospital due to recurring phantom pains from an old injury. The nurse informed him that Ju-yun had decided to take full responsibility for the failed experiment and had submitted her resignation, preparing to face any consequences. Lee Goon still harbored resentment towards Ju-yun and wanted nothing to do with her. However, the nurse told him that Ju-yun had also been a subject of the memory erasure experiment because of her own traumatic memories she wished to erase. Her father, a dedicated psychiatrist, was tragically killed by a patient during a session, an event Ju-yun witnessed, leaving her deeply traumatized. After hearing Ju-yun's story, Lee-gun felt very conflicted. Unable to sleep that night, he accidentally found a star projector left by Ju-yun on his desk. Turning on the projector and seeing stars, he recalled the romantic night they had spent watching the stars together. The blend of past happiness and current sorrow left Lee-gun with mixed feelings. Meanwhile, Ju-yun, also missing Lee-gun, asked Lee-shin to keep an eye on him and report any issues. As they discussed Lee-gun, they remembered they hadn't yet revealed that Se-yang was Lee-gun's first love. Recently, Se-yang had disappeared, and even Ju-yun didn't know her whereabouts at that moment. Se-yang was being captive by Ju-yun in a repair center, unable to contact the outside world. When she woke up in the dim basement, she found the walls covered with her recent photos, realizing Sung Hyeon had been secretly tracking her for a long time. Recently, while searching for her father, Se-jan had found her old home address and visited there. She found a tennis medal and an invitation to a school reunion in the mailbox at that time. Se-yang was unaware that Sung Hyeon Young was nearby observing her, initially wary of this unexpected visitor, and Sung Hyeon, upon overhearing Se-yang's phone conversation about searching for her father, realized she was his daughter and dropped the bottle he was holding. Later, hearing that a schoolmate was a tennis player, Se-jan assumed the medal belonged to them. She brought the medal to the reunion, hoping to return it and also inquire about Sung Hyeon. After hanging the medal, Se-yang encountered Lee-shin in the parking lot, and they shared a kiss in his car. Lee-gun, arriving at the scene, witnessed this, and Sung Hyeon, not only seeing the kiss but also spotting Lee-gun and being paranoid, assumed Lee-shin was mistreating Se-yang, thus adding him to his list of people to track. He secretly took photos of the Lee brothers arguing on a bridge and spread rumors that Lee-shin was plotting against his own brother. And Sung Hyeon believes that anyone close to Se-yang could harm her and should be punished, especially Ju-yun, who he suspects approached Se-yang to avenge her deceased father, and Sung Hyeon decides to take revenge on Ju-yun. Se-yang understands that Ju-yun will be in Sung Hyeon's next target despite her pleas, and Sung Hyeon is set on avenging Ju-yun. One evening, as Ju-yun walks alone and Sung Hyeon Young follows her, he accidentally drops his keys. Ju-yun, hearing the noise, turns around and returns the keys. Under the dim streetlight, she fails to see his face clearly. Just then, her mother calls out to her at the intersection, and Sung Hyeon leaves the next day. The truth about the side effects of the memory erasure experiment is revealed. Hospital executives convene a meeting to discipline Ju-yun, the main person responsible. On the day of the meeting, Lee-gun attends and shares his experiences post-experiment. He feels like he played a role in someone else's life and not his own during the memory loss. However, this unique experience made him realize that he still has control over his life changes. Thus, he does not blame Ju-yun. With Lee-gun's testimony, the executives decide to mildly reprimand Ju-yun by suspending her clinical trials for 3 months. Committed to taking full responsibility, Ju-yun informs the project investors of the unethical experiments conducted on Lee-gun, leading to the investors withdrawing all funding for the research. The director, realizing the exposure, shifts all blame to Tae-woo and calls for another meeting to investigate his actions. After leaving the hospital, a disheartened Lee-gun returns home and finds post-it notes left by Ju-yun everywhere. Hoping to keep his spirits up and to take care of himself, Lee-gun crumples these notes and throws them away. He is also unsure whether to keep or discard a delicate bracelet he designed and made. The police find the stalker's personal information and send it to Lee-gun, who immediately recognizes that the stalker looks exactly like Sung Hyeon. Then Lee-shin tells Lee-gun that has found in Sung Hyeon, but has been out of contact. Connecting all this information makes Lee-gun increasingly uneasy. Meanwhile, trapped in a basement, Se-jan tries to escape. She finds a working card reader among the clutter. Se-yang has a bank card given by Ju-yun. Knowing her own card was stopped by her mother, she uses the card to make several transactions. Ju-yun immediately receives transaction alerts on her phone showing repeated charges at a repair center, including one for 112 Korean won, the emergency number. Reeling something is wrong, Ju-yun finds the repair center address and plans to rush there with Lee-shin. Just then, Ju-yun receives a message from Se-yang's phone asking to meet in the treatment room. Ju-yun mistakenly thought her earlier suspicions were all wrong and returned to the clinic to find Se-yang. Lee-shin, to confirm the situation, drove alone to the repair center to uncover the truth. Just as he arrived, he received a call from Lee-gun previously. Lee-gun felt something was amiss and called the police to find out what kind of person the stalker really was. However, the police informed him that Sung Hyun-young was not only a stalker but also an extremely dangerous individual who had been the perpetrator in a medical malpractice murder years ago. Lee Goon searched online for information related to the murder and discovered that the victim was Ju-yeon's father. At that time, the families of Ju-yeon and So-yang were close, and Sung Hyun, having just been released from prison, was known as a dangerous man. After his release, he found his wife and daughter's new address and saw his wife kindly offering fruit to Ju-yeon's father, which enraged him and led him to murder Ju-yeon. Happened to arrive at the crime scene, and Sung Hyun-young was about to attack her when Ju-yeon's mother, having learned that Sung Hyun-young had been released and obtained their new address, called the office to warn her husband about his safety. Se-jan and her mother had already left, and it was this call that momentarily brought back Hyo-myung's conscience, thus sparing Ju-yeon's life. However, witnessing her father's death left Ju-yeon with severe psychological trauma and mutism, which took a long time to overcome. After learning the truth, Lee Goon, enduring psychosomatic pain, found out from Lee Shin where Ju-yeon was and hurried there. Meanwhile, Kyung Ju-yeon, having just entered the clinic, saw a stuffed bunny similar to one she had held on the day of her father's incident. This sight triggered her past trauma and she threw the bunny away just as Sung Hyun-young approached her from behind. Se-yang's father, thinking Ju-yeon was harming their father-daughter relationship, scared Ju-yeon into fainting just as she was about to face tragedy. Lee Goon arrived in time and struggled with Sung Hyun-young in the dark. The police arrived soon after and arrested Sung Hyun-young. The person who had called the police was Se-yang, who had just been safely rescued by Lee Shin, watching her father being taken away in a police car. Se-yang was heartbroken but could not accept her father harming others. After the crisis, Lee Goon took Ju-yeon to the hospital. When she woke up, she found a delicate bracelet on her wrist. Having gone through so much, Se-yang planned to leave Korea. Before leaving, she met with Lee Goon to explain the events surrounding the metal she had found and brought to the reunion, clarifying that it was not her but Lee Goon's life-saving first love who had retrieved the metal that had fallen into the river. She had just happened to find the metal in a house she used to live in. No one knew who Lee Goon's first love was, but Se-yang could tell that there was real affection between Lee Goon and Ju-yeon. After her discharge from the hospital, Ju-yeon began to recall her childhood memories. Years ago, Ju-yeon Yang and Se-yang were playing outdoors when they saw Lee Goon fall into the water. Ju-yeon jumped in and rescued Lee Goon and later helped recover a metal. By the time she came ashore, Lee Goon had already left soaked. Ju-yeon went to find Se-yang, but discovered that Se-yang and her mother had hurriedly left to avoid Sung Hyun. Unaware of this, Sung Hyun Ju-yeon changed out of her wet clothes and left the metal at Se-yang's house before going to find her father and stumbling upon a crime scene during this time. Lee Goon remembered his first love and was convinced that Ju-yeon was the one he was looking for. As these were his true memories, Ju-yeon was indeed his first love, not merely a side effect. Lee Goon intended to take a cab to find Ju-yeon, but upon seeing his disheveled reflection in the car window, he instantly lost confidence. 3 years later, Lee Goon had regained his composure. Ju-yeon returned from abroad after writing a thesis on the brain's healing powers, for which she received awards and industry recognition. Taking advantage of a brief visit home, Ju-yeon went to the place where she had once saved Lee Goon. Looking up, she saw Lee Goon slowly approaching her. Lee Goon, beaming with joy, confessed his feelings to Ju-yeon. A gentle breeze passed, and the two fond lovers embraced softly. The drama end here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more video. See you next time.